All right, this is going to be the last video of this module. You guys have made it. Now, I saved the best for last. I really did. I truly believe that if you have sales non-negotiables in your career, in your life, that you will be absolutely dominant at this section of your business. So let's go ahead and break it down. So in April of 2024, one of our staff members was in a closing rut. And there are very simple tweaks that we did to help him go from 14% closing in April to 48% closing in September. That is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, right? So this individual has been with me for multiple years. He got into a closing rut. We all do, right? It happens. But we focused on these specific things to help him go from 14% closing to 48% closing from April to September. Okay, first thing that we did, we focused on personal development. All right. Prior to this individual did not have a personal development routine. Like we've established in the very first video of this module, if you are going to be good at sales, right, you have to be able to lead yourself, because sales is leadership. And if you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead somebody else to make a decision that they know they need to make, but for whatever reason cannot? So we began focusing on consistent workouts, feeding his mind with positive content and sales training, eating right, and investing in his personal relationships. Now, the second thing that we focused on here is increasing his professional development training. More specifically, obviously, this individual was a closer, so professional development was sales training. Okay, so what we did is we started training 2 to 4 times a week. Right, previously we were training twice a week, and then we started training 4 times a week. In addition to that, I also reviewed one of his sales calls every week. Right, so technically that's 5 trainings in a working week. So we increased his professional development. All right. The third thing we did is we instituted sales non-negotiables. Okay. Sales non-negotiables are daily sales actions that have to be completed. And if they're not completed, there's a penalty, right? So for example, you will close X deals a day or complete X follow-ups a day. And if you fail to meet both targets, your follow-ups and closing deals, if you fail to do one or the other target, then there's going to be a penalty. Now, that penalty can be running a mile, it could be doing 50 burpees, something that you don't want to do, right? So we instituted sales non-negotiables, okay? The last thing we did is we did points 1 through 3 consistently, all right? And here was his close rate. His close rate was 14% in April, 19% in May, 33% in June, 38% in July, 47% in August, and 48% in September, right? So you can see this wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't just he had a bad month in April and a great month in September. You can see month over month that his close rate increased the more consistent we were with actually focusing on principles 1, 2, and 3. All right, here's the beauty of this, right? Sales does not have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be, this big abstract thing, right? It just needs to be a simple set of actions that we do daily in order to be successful. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this lesson, is we're going to be talking about sales non-negotiables. Okay, these are your daily commitments that are going to drive your results in sales. So what exactly are your sales non-negotiables? Well, first and foremost, it should be everything that we talked about, right? It should be the personal development, it should be the professional development, but then there is one last missing piece, right? And that is the sales non-negotiables. Okay, so here's the formula. All right, the formula is you will book X calls a day / close X deals a day, or you will start X new messages and do X follow-ups a day. If you fail to meet one or the other, meaning if you hit your booking and closing targets for the day, it's a win. If you don't hit your booking and closing targets for the day, but you do hit your new message and follow-ups targets for the day, it's still a win. But if you fail to do the new messages and follow-ups, and you fail to do your booking and closing targets for the day, that's where the penalty comes in. All right. And the penalty needs to be something that sucks. It needs to be something that you don't want to fucking do, right? It could be going for a run. It could be doing burpees, whatever it is. I'll let you make that decision on what would suck for you, right? But you have to hold yourself accountable to You have to hold yourself accountable to that penalty. All right, let's break this down further just so you have a full understanding of what we're looking for here. Okay, so booking X calls a day, right? This target depends on various different factors, but we're going to simplify it using time as the main factor. Okay, so we're going to assume that you can book 0.25 calls every hour you work in lead generation, every hour you work in the DMs. Okay. So if you spend 4 hours in the DMs a day, that means that you're going to book one call a day. So your target should always be at least one call booking per day using 0.25 calls booked per hour as a guiding measure. Okay. Now, the next thing here is going to be closing X deals a day. All right. So this target depends solely on how many calls are scheduled for that day. All right. If there are no calls scheduled for that day, then it should not be included in your target. Right. But if you do have calls on your calendar for that day, then we're going to include it in our daily sales non-negotiable. Okay. So if you have calls on your calendar, it's included. If you don't have calls on your calendar, then you're only going to focus on your booking target. Okay, here's the example. Let's say that you have 3 calls on your calendar that day. Let's say that your closing rate is 35%, right? So we take 3 calls, we multiply it by 0.35. That means that you're going to close at least 1 call for that day. All right. Now, the next thing here is going to be new messages, right? You remember it was X calls booked, X deals closed, X new messages. So what exactly is that? All right. This represents the number of new conversations started each day. Now, social media platforms may limit how many new messages you can send. So sending a target of at least 25 a day is typically safe. All right. If there are no red flags from the platforms, you can increase the target by 2 to 5 new messages per week. Okay, so if you encounter any red flags or action blocks, I would pause creating new messages for 48 hours. Then I would resume with a reduced target of 10 to 25 a day. Okay, so once again, I would start with 25 new messages a day. If things go really well, maybe you do 30 new messages a day the next week, right? And you can add 2 to 5 every week. If you start seeing some things are acting a little funky, right? I would pause for 48 hours and then I would resume with a reduced target. All right. Now, the last part of this equation was X follow-ups. Okay, this includes follow-ups with prospects you haven't booked for a call yet, and those that you've already engaged with, meaning that maybe you did have a call with them, but they didn't close, or you booked a call with them and they didn't show, right? All those categories are fair game in this equation, okay? So a good target here would be 25 follow-ups per category, maybe a total of 50 follow-ups a day. All right, 25 to 50 follow-ups a day, I would say is good here. Okay, so that's the breakdown of each of these. Once again, you will book X calls a day / close X deals a day, or you will initiate X new messages a day and do X follow-ups a day. If you fail to meet these targets or sales activities, then you must execute the penalty. So once again, it's a win if you hit your bookings plus closes for the day, or if you do your new messages and follow-ups for the day. If you do one or the other, it's considered a win. If you fail both, that's where the penalty comes in. Once again, the penalty here is going to be something you don't want to do, right? In my case, I would say physical activity is going to be your best choice, in my recommendation, I would say physical activity is going to be your best choice, but really you can choose anything you want. It just has to suck. All right. Now, last thing here, your homework. Create your sales non-negotiables and share them with your one-to-one sales coach if you have the one-to-one coaching program. All right. Once created, this should take about 10 minutes for you to create. I would begin executing the plan the very next day. All right. If you do this, like I said, I saved the best for last. If you do this, I promise you'll never have a problem with lead generation or closing deals. All right, y'all. That's going to be the conclusion of this module. I hope you learned a ton about sales. I hope you're walking away from this saying like, man, okay, this actually is simpler than I thought it was going to be. And hopefully you found some valuable information. All right. I'll see you in the next module. Peace.